Hello, everyone, and welcome to another polýMATHY podcast. And today I have these two fantastic YouTubers, Iglika and Alex of Monoglossia, which I'm saying in a sort of a modern Greek way, but Monoglossia, which I like the sound of modern Greek. And these two are really fascinating to me because of how bravely they've been studying other languages and doing so publicly right on their YouTube channels, on their YouTube channel, Monoglossia, which you should subscribe to, by the way, and the link's right in the description. And so anyway, how are you two doing today?
Oh, really good. Thank you. Yeah. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so happy to see both of you. I got to be on your channel a few weeks ago, which was a really fun conversation all about Latin and Greek stuff and my specialty. And I put that at quotes just because I'm self-taught in the languages, and I've learned so much from so many other people who, in the realms of the classical languages, they have PhDs and they've spent their whole lives and they're dedicated to it. It's something that I've gotten to do, which I love. I love it so much. But I've learned so much from other people, so I'm really a dabbler in a way. And certainly I'm not a native speaker either, obviously. You, however, are respectively native speakers of Bulgarian and French. So we're going to talk about Bulgarian today. And first, tell all of us a little bit about the stuff you do on Monoglossia and why you started it.
Okay, if you want to start.
Well, basically, we got to live in several places that were extremely international, and we really liked this atmosphere, and we wanted to give a little bit of taste of that. Iglika is clearly the accomplished linguist.
Well, not really a linguist, but
okay, she speaks several languages, basically, and she's constantly learning. She's really always brushing off skills in terms of learning. As for me, I'm more of I'm more interested in the cultural aspects of things. Already as a French person, it feels like a great deal that I managed to speak English to start with. Okay, I like that.
Come on, well.
But yeah, it's very much the I'd say world cinema, it's the books from Italian authors or Scandinavian authors. This is more my inputs, and I also kind of would like to share some facts that are less known about France, maybe. And I think it's also a great opportunity because the Balkans are absolutely fascinating, and Bulgaria in particular. I know it really quite well.
So yes, we started this during lockdown. Maybe many other people started a passion project, and yes, our ideas have been changing since we started. For example, we found that we really enjoy discovering rare languages that people are ready to share with us. And also, yes, learning in front of people, being people's classmates. We really enjoy this. And in real life, we've noticed that people are interested by the way we speak several languages, including at home, we speak to each other in English, we speak to our child in our respective languages. And then, yes, we also, of course, we like traveling, seeing different places. We met in the UK.
Where? In the UK?
In Essex, University of Essex.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's great. Well, and how great that you get to do it together. That's fantastic. In fact, on Scorpio Martiano's my other channel tomorrow, I'm going to have a live stream in Latin with another couple, some really good friends of mine who are Latin speakers, and it's just so nice to see couples being able to do these things together, language-based in particular, because what's being in a relationship more than communication, right? So it's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. So someone asked in the comments, is the topic Bulgarian? Absolutely, it is. In fact, if you're ready, Iglika, because these two have prepared a whole PowerPoint presentation to talk about Bulgarian, which is, I think, very impressive and shows the kind of industry and dedication that these two already bringing to the great content that they're producing. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through it. So if you out there have some questions about Bulgarian, the language, I'm going to ask questions too as we go through. And oh wow, it's like looking into the endless infinity. That was cool. Yeah, and yeah. So I'll as politely as I can interrupt when we have some questions, whether from me or from the audience. And when you're ready, let's tell us about Bulgarian.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm starting with a little disclaimer. So first of all, this is a polyglot friendly version of presentation of the Bulgarian language, as in we're not going to be starting from the ABC or anything. It's mostly interesting facts about Bulgarian. Actually, when Luke was our guest, we noticed he was interested in some of the specificities of the Bulgarian language, and this got us thinking and being interested and researching. So we hope you're going to enjoy all that. I am personally not familiar with many Slavic languages. I speak intermediate Russian, but if at any point I mention something that is not specifically typical to Bulgarian, you're free to let me know, of course.
When there are about 14 national Slavic languages, what number constitutes many? Like, how many do you have to know? Does it have to be like 12 of them? There's not many of them. I think
great.
2 is far more than I know. I have a very small knowledge of Russian myself. I love Russian, and I've looked at all the Slavic languages, including a little bit of Bulgarian years ago. I know I'm fascinated by them. I regret that I haven't given them the time yet. So your disclaimer is heard, but not necessary for me.
Thank you. And there is a fact about the sources that I have been looking at. Basically, there are some fashions in terms of even what is supposed to be objective information. So I have tried to make sure I include only objective information, but then again, sometimes sources are charged with the person's personal, political, historical opinions. So something to keep in mind. And also, Alex is not Bulgarian, so that's also a very important perspective.
I try my best to kind of basically be relevant, but yeah, please do be kind with with my input. Thank you.
Starting with a light, interesting fact linked to nonverbal communication. Maybe some of you know it. In France, there was an advertisement that referred to this. It's the fact that in Bulgarian, yes, right. The way we move our head when we say yes and no is the opposite of what you're used to.
Please demonstrate.
Okay,
Alex,
no.
Can you ask Iglika a yes question and then a no question?
That's
not a yes or no question.
It's not a yes or no question.
Could be in English if you want.
Yeah, no problem. Добре ли си?
Не.
Защо не?
Ask me again.
What?
Ask me again. I lied. It's not true that I'm not okay. Ask me again, please.
You're not okay. Как си?
Добре ли си? Maybe it has to be yes or no question.
Добре ли си?
That.
Oh, that's so confusing.
It is. No. And especially today, it has been a bit mixed up because of fast traveling, because of foreigners coming over. So I don't know what I do, actually. I'm sure I don't do it the Bulgarian way when I don't talk to Bulgarians.
Most of the time, you just do it through basically the way of let's say Westerners do. I worked in Bulgaria for a while, and all my colleagues would basically shake their head the way French people do, or Americans.
Not surprised. Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I'm nodding.
Wow, that's so interesting. So, and I'm curious about the language contact, like how, for example, would you say that it's right to the border where this particular inversion is true? So when you get to the border of Greece or Romania, you know, it's
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes, we have stories from people coming from Greece, from Romania that have had a problem with this.
Yeah.
Right away. Everyone that went to Bulgaria has a story about this.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. And and want to let you know, JP, who's in the audience, he just gave a super chat. I'm absolutely going to get to your question. Thanks so much for asking. Just want you to know I'm going to ask it here in a few minutes. But for now, please continue, Iglika.
Okay, so where this comes from, we don't really know. There are a couple of theories. Since similar patterns have been found in Albania, Greece, and Turkey, there is a theory that it comes all the way from India. But in India, it's supposedly a way more complex system of shaking the head in various ways. And another theory is that the Bulgars, which is one of the tribes that today's Bulgarian people are kept as ancestors, they used to raise horses. And there is a theory that in some way it's an imitation of the movement of horses, like the way horses would move their head when you give them food, when you take away the food.
Wow, horse people like in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, again on the light side, some funny literal translations of Bulgarian sayings. So we have Kakya Karash, how do you drive her? Of course, there is no her.
Kakya Karash.
How are you doing?
Oh.
How is it going?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's very similar to Latin, actually. The way to say how is it going is quid agis. Literally, what do you drive or push? Actually, maybe most of it means how are you pushing the plow in the field? Quid agis. So like driving, almost like driving a car. Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. By the way, all pictures are Alex's work.
Oh, they're fantastic. Oh, well, it's certainly far better than anything I could do. First of all, Alex, because you went and you sighed like it, as if don't be bashful at all. Thank you so much for the illustrations. I love them.
Thank you.
So we have be careful in the picture. Внимавай в картинката. It just means be careful what you're doing. A bit with the implication of I'm looking at you, be careful what I'm seeing. Then we have Работа му е майката. Work is his mother. Of course, there is no his. It's just impersonal pronouns, and it just means yes, work is so important. You can achieve it with work. And finally, спи ми се, та две не виждам. I feel so sleepy. I can't see two. Basically, we use this expression, I can't see two, linked to being tired. It's like it's not like I can't see, it's I can't see two things for some reason.
Wow. That's so interesting. And I have a question that's a little off topic, but I'd like to hear your answer. The question's from JP, who sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, JP. That's really nice of you. And he asks, how do you keep a language alive in your head? I learn it as fast as I forget because there's no one to talk to. Ein Weizenbier hilft immer, sich zu erinnern. A white beer, not white beer. What is that? A Weizenbier. Some kind of beer always helps to remember. I don't remember what Weizen means. My German's terrible these days. And that's a really good question. Thank you again, JP, for the super chat. So so you've of course been learning many languages all at once now. And you live, of course, in France. You have each other because you can practice Bulgarian and French, but you may not have I know you're learning Italian and other languages. How would you answer JP's question?
Well, talking to oneself can also help. Like just talking out loud, reading out loud. It really feels very animated. It doesn't feel lonely at all. It feels like you're keeping the language alive. You're really into watching films, for instance.
But for example, while raising our son, we really made sure that he was maybe subjected to materials in all languages. Like when we lived in Bulgaria, I really insisted that he read some French books. He had basically French homeworks. It's exactly the same here. He's following a course in like the Bulgarian school in Paris, if I'm not mistaken, online. And so it does take some constant effort. Like it would be extremely easy for us and to stick to one language and sort of forget the like
probably yes. I don't want to know, because we're not going to stick to one language, but yes, it's a common problem.
Including English. As a matter of fact, we keep on using English in our everyday life, because I know that basically for me, I wouldn't be surprised if I end up not speaking it at all after a while, which would be really a shame. But I barely use it for work, so that's a bit frustrating. For example.
Well, I understand how that is. I got to spend probably most a year total in Italy, altogether over the years, mainly 2005, and I really haven't progressed in my Italian since then. I'm comfortable in most conversations and what I read, but it's like I almost feel embarrassed that I now speak Latin much more comfortably than Italian. I'm like, well, my Latin's not perfect either, you know, but it's still. It's like, yeah, I feel like you could, I mean, look at your command of English. We can have this conversation and there's no problem. You know, why do you have to? What's your goal? Is your goal to read some kind of specific literature, do something in business? If you're meeting all your goals, there's only so much time. I think it's worthwhile to go for those. A couple folks inform me that JP's question about his comment on Weizenbier as wheat beer, both Isabella and Shishkien, I hope I said that right. It looks Polish. Corrected me there. And one comment on that, Isabella also adds that she makes up stories in the language, and that really helps. I think it's a good comment as well.
Absolutely,
And one more on this before we move on to the Bulgarian topic. JP asks, he comments that the main difficulty is speaking, and after 2 weeks, my speech returns to normal. I guess like it's I think JP, you're experiencing what everybody experiences, which is that I think I'd say as human beings I think we're genetically programmed to be able to speak really just one language and with true fluency, and that every time we learn anything in another foreign language, it's not unnatural to us, but it's definitely extra effort. It's like being an athlete. Like I can run, I don't know, some number of meters, but could I run like a marathon? No, I have to train for that. Could I do other athletic stuff? You know, it's very limited because I haven't done very much athletic training at all. So eventually, especially with a specific target, like one could be an athlete, right? One could be just a good all-around athlete, but they're especially good at football or soccer. They're really good at the long jump because that's what they train for. And I think that's like us with foreign languages. We train in maybe 1 or 2 languages, maybe 5 or more, but ultimately it's very similar. So JP, don't sweat it. What you're going through now is very, very normal. Trying to immerse yourself. I think everything that Iglika and Alex said was outstanding, because it is exactly the same thing. Talking to yourself in the language all the time, labeling your house. Like my office here, I have some labels in Greek and stuff just to help keep it up. All right. Well, please continue with your presentation here.
Okay. So, a quick note about the location of Bulgaria and the original Bulgarian people. It is actually a very key location, or at least in the past it was, because Bulgaria is situated in the corner between 3 continents. We have Europe, Asia, and Africa. So we had many important roads going through it, including Roman ones like Via Diagonalis, which went from Belgrade to Istanbul. And as a country, Bulgaria was established in 681, which makes it the oldest European country to have kept its original name. And the people who made up Bulgaria at the time were the Thracians, who had been living there for a long time. Also the Slavs, several Slavic tribes that migrated in the area, and then the Bulgars, which are kind of the biggest mystery out of the three, because we don't know how many of them there were, what the proportions were, and we don't know where exactly they came from. I remember I used to study that the Bulgars were maybe Asian from Eastern Asia. Well, now the most common theory is that they were a Turkic tribe.
That's fascinating. I had no idea that the Bulgars weren't Bulgarian, I think, the language and your country. So I think Slavic. I wouldn't think of the original foundational people being anything other, but that's fascinating. Turkic.
Yes, many people in Bulgaria, many people were interested in this because it's a bit of a mystery for us. And in terms of the language, it is mostly Slavic in terms of vocabulary. There are a few words that are supposedly Bulgar, like kuche, dog, which is not similar to the word for dog in other Slavic languages. And sometimes we can see that there are two parallel vocabularies. For instance, for bread, we have chliab, which is like Russian, basically, which is a Slavic word. But we also have samun, which is, I think, Iranian, Persian, and this talks of the languages of the two tribes that mixed up a little bit. A fun fact is that the name Boris is not Slavic but Bulgar. It actually it went from Bulgaria to Russia. Usually things are the other way around. So I remember my history teacher telling me this.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, Boris Johnson,
for example,
as a Bulgarian name.
Yeah, I think it's. I find that interesting too that Western Europeans have taken on some Slavic names here and there, like say I've known Natasha, which is of course the diminutive of say Russian Natalia, and Boris and so forth. That they're actually they're not that uncommon, which is great. I mean, they're to have that, but there isn't that much historical, cultural intermixing, I think, in between the Eastern and Western parts of Europe, especially with names. So I find it really interesting and a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Yes, moving on to specific letters and sounds. We have the difficult sounds in the alphabet that come in exactly this order. So, ch, sh, sh. Excellent. Yeah. We have the next letter. It is not pronounced. It doesn't have a sound. It is called Ermalak in the alphabet. It always appears before O and never in the beginning of words. A couple of examples: ascensor, petio. It doesn't sound very typically Bulgarian, does it?
No.
It has this soft feeling to it that is not very common to Bulgarian.
And that you would commonly associate with, for example, Russian.
Russian, yes.
Could you demonstrate that sound again?
Yo, ascensor, petio.
Yeah.
And there's another version, of course, with the I kratko, which is the E with a little sign on top of it. It's exactly the same sound. They're used interchangeably, but one comes before a vowel, the other before a consonant. The sounds are identical. Then a letter that is very, very typical is It's even there in the name Bulgaria, Bulgarski. It is a very strong sound, and it's a mid-back unrounded vowel. And officially only one word begins with it, ago. But today, for example, we take some words from English, and it can be a ready transliteration of things like update.
And ugle is angle?
Yes, that's right.
Cool.
So
that's the word in the third line on the far right. For those of us who know Cyrillic, it's thankfully I can read the Russian version of Cyrillic so I can follow along at least. So, Igl is there on the right of the third line.
Yes. Can you read the others too?
Yeah, well, that'll be fun. So Bulgaria, Bul, is that right? Bulgaria.
Good.
Okay. But rib, is that fish?
Yeah. Well, excellent. Yeah.
And lib, lib. I don't know lib.
Love.
Oh, it's liv.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means.
Lion.
Lion. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
It is also a very key word for us because we have like the national coat of arms. We have yes, we have a lion. Also, the currency in Bulgaria is called lev, which proves that in the past it was actually pronounced differently. Without the it was pronounced lev.
That's interesting. There's more than one currency in that region which uses lion.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I thought in the past at least. And then the last one, so organ. What's organ?
Fire.
Yeah. And then ruka is arm, hand.
Hand, yes.
Yeah.
Hand and arm, yes.
Yeah, both of them. So I think many Slavic languages use the same word for both hand, arm, but like.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So actually, these last two, I put them because they're confusing even to Bulgarians. Is one of the 6 vowels. They're paired, and comes together with a. So if a syllable is not stressed, we can't tell if it's an or an a. For example, ogan, we absolutely can't tell. Raka, and we have to think of another word that has the same root and where the stress falls on the vowel, so we're sure what it is. For example, raka is pretty straightforward. Rachin, to make the adjective, and we got the stress, everything is good. For ogan, it's a bit more complicated. If we make the adjective here, it will be ognen, so it falls off. And when it does, it means that it was an If it had been an a, it would have stayed.
That makes a lot of sense. Sort of a shadow vowel that fills space and it comes in and out. Cool.
Yeah. And then the consonants also come in pairs. And this is another reason why Bulgarian is not completely phonetic. When it comes to the end, when these consonants come at the end of a word, we cannot tell which one it is. Is it the voiced or the voiceless one? Of course, the pairs exist in many languages, but for us, it really causes a problem. We never pronounce a voiced one at the end of a word. For example, grat. I cannot say grad. I will say grat. Nos, bes. And in other languages, for example, in French, if I'm forced to say garage, garage, it feels like I have to add a tiny vowel after it. Otherwise, I cannot say it.
Yeah. And it can take a while to realize that actually it's not written in the way you imagine it to be. So if you're not used to this rule. So.
Okay, Alex, let me test you first. This is a complicated word.
Yeah.
Svatba. It means wedding.
Wedding, yeah.
Is it with a t or with a d? Actually, when we pronounce the letters in the alphabet, we say always. T, d. And even when we're thinking, when we're wondering, we say
It's actually it's a bit easy. I've seen it written, so it's not much of a.
Okay, tell me.
Svatba.
No.
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 Wow, I got it wrong.
Actually, it's interesting. Many Bulgarians get it wrong because we hear that it's a t. We hear it like a t, and we think there must be a catch. It must be a d. Because usually there is a catch, but actually there isn't.
I have seen it written with a d. So.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah, Svitba, right? You're saying Svitba?
Svatba. Yeah.
Svatba.
Yeah,
are you saying the first part is unvoiced, or is it just written? It's written the.
It's written t. It's actually in this case it's written t, and it's pronounced t. Yes, but we can't tell, basically. It's one of those words that we just have to memorize. We can't think of any word deriving from it.
All right.
And
I can do the other two.
no, therefore, look.
Shame.
So we have two words that sound very similar.
Okay.
Samolet and sładolet. Plain and ice cream. So
Okay,
can
so
you try to guess which one?
Okay, so you pronounced them just now. They both ended with a voiceless "ta."
Yes, always. Yes,
that's the phonetic rule in the language.
Yes.
So samolet ends with a "ta" with T, English T, only because I know samoliet in
Russian.
In Russian. So
yes,
and swabol is that
sładolet.
Sladolet. I can't. Again, my Russian's not very good, so I can't think of it. But I would just guess that's the "the." Is that the D?
That's right.
Just because we have two examples, but I had no idea.
I'll tell you why. Yes, that's true. But they sound so similar, yet they're so different. The way they're formed. Of course, Bulgarian being a highly morphological language, they come from other roots. Samolet comes from sam, alone, and letia, to fly.
Also fly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then sładolet comes from slad, which means sweet, and led, which means ice.
Yeah, Russian now.
So leaden, ice.
I think I do something that's very annoying, which is I'm constantly comparing the Slavic language I'm talking to someone about to Russian, and I apologize. I've always done that.
I do that too.
Oh, you do?
Russian is the one I'm most familiar with.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. It's like, oh, it's like Russian. I know I must be irritating to all of you out there who are Slavic, non-Russian Slavic speakers, especially because it's as if I'm reducing it, just because Russian is so well known. It's like comparing Norwegian and Swedish and Danish to English constantly. I'm sure that would be annoying.
Yeah. No, it's something that actually plenty of Bulgarians they were sort of wondering why I was I had no knowledge whatsoever of Russian and why I would actually try to learn some Bulgarian first. So it's unfortunately a common
yes.
Yeah.
It's only natural, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy when people are interested in Bulgarian.
Oh, extremely. I love that. Look at the cat inside the mouse's mouth, the mouth teeth.
Yeah.
So this is really flexible word order taken to an extreme. The mouse ate the cat. Мишката изяде котката. Basically, yes, because of the way the places have been switched from the subject and the object, it really sounds like the mouse ate the cat. But basically, it has to be said with a specific intonation, and it really sounds like it is the mouse that the cat ate. It can exist, no problem, but it is not something we would commonly say. There is no strict word order, but there is a very highly preferred word order.
Yeah.
Another example that sounds like it makes sense in both cases, unlike the previous one, is instrumenta pravi majstora. And then there is a bit of a difference, although they would sound exactly the same when they're pronounced. One is instrumenta, the other one is instrumentat, the tool. So we have the tool makes the master, or the master makes the tool. And here we can tell which one it is, because actually the masculine definite article has two versions depending on whether the noun is the subject or object in the sentence. So we have the full one, instrumentat pravi majstora. So definitely the tool makes the master. It's a little bit more about the postfixed articles a little later. They're also interesting.
Right. And you're eventually going to get to the topic soon of the grammatical cases. Some people have commented and asked about that. But we'll wait till we get there. There is a phonetic question that's been asked. It has multiple parts. So me has asked this question about the realization of the letter. How is this pronounced? I don't know it. Do you recognize this? It looks like an Old Church Slavonic letter.
How can we?
Oh, you can't see it right now.
Yes,
Can't even
that's the
describe it.
problem.
Oh, okay.
We can't.
For me, what we'll do is because right now they can't see me and or the comments that I put on the screen. So what we'll do is we'll ask that question later. So continue with the presentation, please.
What if I open? I can just.
Oh, it's okay. It'll be
YouTube
easy. It'll be.
quickly.
I'll
Yes.
put it on the screen and we'll see it later. But I will come back to your question, Me. Thanks for staying with us.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, being negative. So this might be a bit of a national characteristic, but this is not what we're going to talk about. So we have the double negation, like in many Slavic and not only languages, or higher negation. For example, not that it makes much sense, but I have never seen anyone anywhere. Nikuga, nisam vиждал, nikugo, nikade. We have all these negations. Never, I have not seen, nisam vиждал, nikugo, no one, and nikade, nowhere. And when it comes to agreement, we agree with what the person said, not with the general positive. For example, didn't you? The correct answer would be yes, I didn't. But once again, like with the movement of the head, this has been changing a little, which makes it even more confusing, of course. But yes, now we can do both. We can absolutely do both, and it would be just the context, the tone.
Actually, you have an anecdote about this, don't you? Like you studied English.
And with my teacher,
Yeah.
yes. When I was in high school, I was in an international high school, and my teacher was Australian. She would ask me, didn't you do your homework? And I would say yes, thinking that I was agreeing with her that I didn't do my homework. And then she would be like, I don't understand, and where is it? So there was a big misunderstanding.
That's funny.
But
I like it. Yeah, that's so funny how that's like Japanese.
Yes.
The saying yes to the negative statement. Yeah, it's not here. Is it? Yes, which means no. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. I remember getting used to that in Japan because
But my Japanese teacher, who lives in Bulgaria, says that he struggles with this in Bulgaria. So that would mean we've really been including the more universal version of it.
Wow.
He said that he struggles with it with Bulgarians. So yeah.
Yeah.
So from now on, we're going to mostly focus on the non-Slavic features, which kind of set Bulgarian apart from other Slavic languages. Of course, we have some very, very Slavic features like the perfective and imperfective verbs, also very morphologically rich vocabulary, lots of prefixes, suffixes. And then we have other features which set it apart, the use of articles, the lack of infinitive, lack of cases, and the future tense. We'll see this in more detail. There is a brief history of the language. It has been divided into Old Bulgarian or Old Church Slavonic, Middle Bulgarian, and Modern Bulgarian. Old Church Slavonic is situated between the 9th and the 12th centuries. It was close to Proto-Slavic, or the common language that was spoken by Slavic tribes. And it was not highly localized. It was not specific to Bulgaria. It is a fascinating language. I really wish I knew I could learn more about it, and I would love to one day. I have a suggested source for you in case you're interested. Old Church Slavonic Grammar by Horace Lunt.
But I want to speak it. I want the reader full immersion book. I'm just kidding. That's someday.
Wow, actually,
we have
that is kind
people
of
writing
an
Old
interesting
English and an old English type book like that. You may have seen me talk about the Familia Romana of the Lingua Latina per se illustrata series, which teaches Latin, and so there's an old English group who's working on making something like that. So we'll have to get an old Church Slavonic group together too.
I would love to learn this language. It has two alphabets. First there was the Glagolitic, then 100 years later it became the Cyrillic, what is now Cyrillic. And it is very unique because it was composed by one person, literally, Saint Cyril of Thessaloniki. And so we can't really look back and think, oh, this letter, like what influenced it, how we can trace it to other languages and alphabets, because it was really based on the language. There was an alphabet made for it. Then Middle Bulgarian, between the 12th and 16th centuries, it saw some radical changes, like the increase of prepositions, decrease of cases, the postfixed articles, and the future, which ste, that we use today. And finally, modern Bulgarian, starting from the 17th century. And we will talk about modern Bulgarian's features. First, the lack of infinitive. There is no infinitive form. So what we use, for example, in dictionaries would be what we call the basic form, which is the present tense, first person singular. For example, we say gлагола съм, the verb to be, and some actually means I am, as some. We don't have a word for it like être
or like Latin sum. Oh, and you're saying that you don't have infinitives.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you say that I am for be.
Yes, it is the verb I am, is what we say.
Yeah, like just like hina, I'm sorry, hina, that's ancient Greek. Not ime in modern Greek, that I am.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we use prepositions when infinitives will be used in other languages. For example, iskam dayam, I want to eat. We conjugate both of the verbs. Iskam, as iskam, I want. Asyam, I eat. And then just to show where it comes from, it is maybe linkable to the subjunctive in other languages. For example, важно е да внимаваш. It is important that you pay attention. It's basically in other languages when we have a different subject and object, we can use the subjunctive. We can use a phrase starting with a preposition, but in Bulgarian we always do it, even when the subject and the object are the same person. So in Greek it is also like that. In Bulgarian, the infinitive is supposed to have been lost around the 12th century. Is there any trace in Greek of an infinitive in the past, ancient Greek?
Or? Oh yes, ancient Greek has so many infinitives. That's what I think is maybe just a little funny that modern Greek lost them. Although, as we see, it's a feature which has happened in this region and other languages that aren't in the Balkans. But yeah, the Greek has infinitives for which are aspectual. So it has a future infinitive as well as a present continuous infinitive and an aorist infinitive, so a perfective type infinitive. And it can also do something equivalent to infinitives that are passive and active, and it's great. And if I'm not mistaken, and if you're out there to correct me, please correct me. I think Pontic Greek, which I think they call Romaiki still today, spoken in northern Turkey, is the only remaining dialect or language of the Hellenic languages that still has the infinitive.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Then something about tenses. Bulgarian has 9 tenses.
Oh, did you stop sharing your screen? Did you mean to do that?
Oh, really?
I
didn't miss anything.
That's
okay.
That's
Okay.
That's all right. It's okay. Blind
to
names
share it again.
That's why
are
Yes.
touchy thing.
Just that.
Oh, maybe I touched something on the screen here. But yeah, all of you are asking some really great questions and cool comments too. And we're going to talk about them. For example, we're talking about the Sprachbund, a lovely word. I used it in my video I put out today. Sprachbund, a lovely German term for a language union, a unity of languages, a family of languages. And indeed, you're exactly right. We're sharing your screen again. We can see just fine.
Great.
Yes, there's a lot of, and we're going to talk about those. I'm aware of some of them, and I think there's some Romanian speakers as well in the audience, as well as Greeks, and a Macedonian speaker, I think they've mentioned. So we can we can talk about that all together. So we'll get to all of your questions as we go through. So please continue.
Great. So a tense that we're going to mention is the past indefinite. There are a couple of pairs here of the past perfect and the past indefinite tense. Basically, the difference is really, to say it very generally, that the past indefinite tense means that you weren't there when the thing you're saying happened. For example, our son does this all the time. He gets these two tenses wrong in Bulgarian, so I have to ask him this question all the time. Were you there? Were you there? And this is like a drill for him to use the correct tense.
So this is a tense of reported speech because you were there.
Yes, it is. Apparently something like this exists in Turkish, a form of evidentiality, like the tense being based on what evidence there is to what you're saying.
That's so interesting. And there's the closest thing I can think of is something I learned about in the Scots language. Scots being a language very closely related to modern English. And the Scots has a type of conjugation for reporting something that happened. For example, so instead of like, I went to the pub and I saw my friends, it's the present tense with the addition of the letter S. So it's actually the third person form. So I goes to the pub, and I'm not saying with I should say it with a more Scottish sound. Goes to the pub. I guess I can't do. I'm sorry, everyone out there. My Scots language study is greatly diminished, and it was never very strong yet. But so I goes to the pub, and I see my friends. So and I sees my friends. Something like that. So I'm sorry, all the Scots speakers out there. I'm not at all a specialist. I'm just very interested in the language.
But it's amazing.
So,
because
it's not quite the same, really, because it's but it reminds me of it because it has this element of narrative.
Yes, like when you hear it in Scottish, you would think that's wrong English, but it isn't. Yes, it's
right. We would consider that non-standard English, but it is speaker Scots, and an important part of the way they regularly communicate when the Scots speakers talk. Yeah. And
so the first couple of sentences,
Isabella comments that also the S thing is used in the north of England as well, which makes sense because Northern English dialects are naturally quite closely related to the Scots language. So continue, please.
Okay. So the first couple of sentences are based on like a story our son would tell. For example, his parents grounded him. Родителите му го наказаха. If he says it in this way, this would imply that he was there, which obviously he wasn't. So the correct way to say it would be родителите му са го наказали. Then, based on the illustration, it started raining while he was waiting for the bus. Заваля докато чакаше автобуса. It sounds really odd. It would imply you were there with the person, but then you're talking about him. This is the second person. It started raining while you were waiting for the bus, and I was there too. What sounds more natural would be заваляло е докато е чакал автобуса.
I see.
It started raining while he was waiting for the bus, and it's something that he told me. Then it has some different meanings as well. For example, very similarly to the present perfect in English, it can be used when the result is important, not the action or when it happened. For instance, zagubil sam si ključa. I have lost my key. I was there, obviously, but I didn't pay attention. It is not important. But right now, we have the verb to be. So zagubil sam, it really implies that it's the situation I'm in right now. And also we can use it if I can't remember something, if I didn't pay attention. Again, we would use the indefinite as if we were not there.
Cool.
Okay, and here's a challenging sentence. Can you read it?
Okay, so bil sam se napil I sam se bil.
Oh, well, I don't see where that sentence is. Is that on the were you there slide?
It's on the next one. Is it not moving?
May not be showing. That happens sometimes. I'm going to wait. Now I see it. Now it moved. And then say it again, Alex.
All right. So bil sam se napil I sam se bil.
Okay, so we have a lot of bil. The closest translation we can come up with is, they say that I got drunk and got into a fight, but this is nonsense. So we have bil, which is the past indefinite of some, just the verb to be. We have another bil because the person did two things, basically. Bil sam se napil, I got drunk. I sam se bil. The third bil comes from the verb bija se, to fight, which is a reflexive verb in Bulgarian. Literally, it would be something like I beat myself. So it implies someone is saying this to the person. Someone claimed it. Oh, it doesn't need to be said explicitly. They say, or someone said. Just the fact that this tense is used means that someone said it.
And which slide are you on again? Is it the bil sum still?
Yes.
It is? Okay, good. I want to make sure. Are you able to share the full screen, or do you want to avoid doing that?
Is it not the full screen?
No, in the lower right-hand corner is the presentation mode button.
Okay. Let's try once again.
Chat among friends with some other cool people. The third button on the right, the one that's next to it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I did now. Just taking its time.
Yeah. All of you out there are asking some really interesting questions and some nice comments that we'll get to hear very soon. Great. There you go. Great. Continue, please.
Okay. Is it now moving to the next slide?
Yes.
Okay. So now, after this sentence, which was challenging to non-native Bulgarian speakers, we're moving on to some mistakes that Bulgarian speakers make, because, of course, that says a lot about the language, too. We don't make lots of mistakes in terms of, let's say, spelling the way, for example, in English, there, they are. Again, because Bulgarian is very morphological. Words are long. We don't have many homonyms. But what we get wrong could be some expressions when we are not sure where they come from. For instance, po princip. You really like this one?
Yeah. It's extremely amusing to me.
In general. But it's a very fashionable colloquial expression, and people use it so much, even when it just doesn't fit the situation. It is not about something that happens in general at all. It's something that just happened once. Yes.
Like something really not basically something really specific, something that's like really kind of quite it have exceptional, and like someone will say po princip.
Yes. Did you close the door? Yes, in general. For example,
princip,
yes. Another one is predvid. It's a word that doesn't exist. The v shouldn't be there. V means in. It's just predvid. The prefix is pred, which means in front of, and predvid means to take into account, to think about. It's used very often, and it already has a prefix. The V is really not needed. For some reason, it got to be popular in this way with the V. It makes me think a bit of something like aujourd'hui in French. Some people say this, right?
Extremely annoying. But it's very fashionable, very common.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Another expression that is used often but is wrong is pitam vapros, to ask a question, which again it can't be said like that. Pitam alone means to ask a question.
It sounds
and
awkward in Latin too, because the word for a question is a thing asked. It's rogatum, so rogare rogatum. As far as I know, it's not attested in ancient authors.
French too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Demander une question, you wouldn't say that, right?
No, you wouldn't.
But you would say poser une question, though, which could be like,
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, we can say that too. Задавам въпрос is the correct one. Yes, I'm thinking about other languages. Actually, very often the verb to ask and question are the same. Like in Spanish, wouldn't that be something like preguntar una pregunta? It's just, yes, very often it's just people wouldn't make this mistake because it's basically the same word even. Then we have some false friends with English. I'm sure this is not typical to Bulgarian only. For example, pretendiram is not to pretend, it's to have an ambition. And speculiram, yes, completely different.
We still have that. In English, a pretender to the throne is an idiom.
Yes.
Exactly
I
the
was
same
going
idea.
to say the same thing.
Tendere in Latin means to stretch, essentially, and prai is front, so prai tendere is to stretch forward and has this reach. And the idea of a pretense, to pretend something means we also say idiomatically in English, you are reaching, meaning you're grasping for something that you're trying to say or to mean or to do that isn't something that you can quite do because you have to extend. It's not right there.
All right, great. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, completely.
And speculiram is not to speculate in the sense of guess. It is always the sense of to like abuse, which maybe do you have this in French?
Yeah, well, speculation, and I think you can also say it
but it is very negative. It cannot mean just to guess.
But basically when there is something like a speculative, it's really the idea that you exploiting something.
Yes, but again, because you're guessing, kind of, in Bulgaria, it just completely, it doesn't even have the meaning of guessing at all. It's just really abusing like my power, for example. And finally, the fact that it is very fashionable to use English words, even when we have our own words, our own equivalents. I would not say this is a mistake. Maybe they were not in dictionaries until recently, but I would guess that they are now. So it's not necessarily a mistake. It's just a tendency maybe for some people to forget the Bulgarian words and use the international ones instead. Like exactly, internationalen, international. When we have международен or alienация, when we have отчуждение. Okay, and then about cases, which is a long topic. Yes, so it always seems strange to people that there are no cases in Bulgarian. Well, there used to be cases, but now Bulgarian is an analytical language, meaning we use prepositions to convey the same meaning that cases will be used for. We can feel today some remnants of cases. I will give a couple of examples. There is the vocative form, when words change and even people's names change. Like my parents would tell me, Igliko, close the door, please, exchanging the A with an O. And this is officially a form to address someone. It is colloquial and also personal, really something you would expect in a family environment. And my parents would always call me Igliko. Not all names, doesn't work with all names. For example, my brother is called Nikola. There's nothing you can do with that. Yes. But there will be an A for many masculine names.
Or Ivan, like Ivane or something.
Ivane, definitely, yes.
Well, does it work with the? I think I'm reaching there, but for the equivalent of Sasha would be Sasho.
Sasho, yes.
And I think your granddad would call me Sasha.
Oh yes. If the name is Sasha, which would be the diminutive, then Sasha would be the vocative form of it, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Then when we talk about pronouns, even when we study pronouns, we use the terms accusative and dative cases, even though that's kind of stretching it. Again, we can use these words to refer to the direct and indirect objects in other languages too, even if they don't have cases. However, the dative is the one that fell off the latest. And for example, to whom, na kogo, komu used to be used until recently, and no one would say it in a conversation, but to read it somewhere, to see it in books would be completely natural. No one will wonder what this is. And then some fixed expressions, for example, Slava Bogu, thank God, glory to God, literally, just directly from Old Church Slavonic. And people don't think of it as a case, just as a whole expression. Okay, moving on. So, of course, we're wondering what exactly changed.
Why Bulgarian? Bulgarian, that's right. Because the languages next to it, Greek and Romanian, for example, and also Macedonian, right? Don't they all have
I think so.
Macedonian as well? All seem to have it. So that's the most un-Balkan Sprachbund-like characteristic, I think, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. So we can simply say that the language changed with time, which is plausible, but why not? But then again, yes, why didn't it happen with our neighbors? Another theory is that it changed under foreign influence. And a third theory, which is highly supported today, and it's kind of interesting, is that maybe it was there to start with. That even starting from Old Bulgarian, people were not speaking the way they were writing. And this was actually a big problem. There was a reform in the 14th century that wasn't very successful because people were speaking in a very different manner from the way texts had to be written, following strict grammatical rules. Also, supposedly it was very long ago that the genitive and dative cases became one. Yes, so it is the whole theory that due to the Bulgar tribe, possibly, the vocabulary was always very Slavic, but then the grammar was maybe not that Slavic. And influences have been sought by going as far as Egyptian, which of course we cannot know. It's understandable that researchers would want it to be true because that would be so cool, but we don't know. But there's some
Egyptian,
some evidence that is
the later form of Egyptian. That's hard to believe. As far as, I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's possible. How would they get there? Why?
Yeah. So we have Egyptian, then Coptic, Persian, Pashto, Tocharian. So really taking a big trip through Africa and Asia. Again, yes, Bulgaria, of course, was in a suitable position for many people to go. But then, yes, I guess it's something that will continue to be researched.
Absolutely.
Hopefully not only by Bulgarians.
Yeah. That's sort of our hope. We have a lot of really accomplished polyglots in the audience and people who are just interested in this topic. So perhaps, as we hope, just sharing this little bit it could lead to maybe not directly, but indirectly to exactly what you're talking about. Someone investigating the Bulgar origin.
Yes.
Great.
So some elements that have served as evidence for some researchers. One is the article "na" that is traced to Coptic and possibly to Egyptian, although it is not certain how it was pronounced, but there was definitely the sound "n." And the article was used in a similar way to the way we use it in Bulgarian. "Na" can be used for so many things. It's the possessive, the dative, the meaning of the dative case. Also, it's a preposition for time that we use for some time references. Actually, at work, when I translate long strings of English words, my colleagues have told me since the beginning, if I really don't know what to do, I can just start from the end, go all the way from the beginning and put "na" between every two words. Although it sounds very generic, but it really works. It retains the meaning. Egyptian-based vocabulary, supposedly. Here, what researchers have mentioned is words for family relations, like kaka, older sister, lelia, aunt, bate, older brother. In Egyptian, this was supposedly something like kaka, then yeya, and va. And then, of course, we can be skeptical and say that words for family relations are kind of similar across languages. Maybe they're even linked to the first sounds that a baby can make. Then Persian-based vocabulary. Supposedly there are around 2,000 words in Bulgarian that are shared with Persian. A couple of examples: drehi, clothes; hazna, treasure; and halka, ring. Then the comparative superlative forms, which are not very typically Slavic. We use the particles po and nai, respectively more and most. And something has been mentioned here about the Tocharian language.
Tocharian.
China, yes.
An Indo-European language near China. Yes, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
I know nothing about Tocharian.
Same, yes. So, for example,
it would be related to Uyghur, if I'm not mistaken.
Uyghur.
Cool. Yeah, Uyghur. Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
No, you said.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's pronounced. That's just how I have pronounced it in my own head. So.
Yeah. Yes, for example, an expression in Bulgarian, "otpero polek," would mean lighter than feather, and that would be "spuk la bana." Wow. Apparently, the structure is similar. In relation to Pashto, the particles che and a have been evoked. Then something that has been traced to Chinese, supposedly, is the suffix chi for professions. Korabchia, knikchia. These sound very archaic. This will be captain and bookkeeper. And there is a similar thing in Turkish. It's G. And we have some words actually ending with G to mark professions which came through Turkish. And then the future tense, also an interesting element of Bulgarian. It is based on the verb want, šte. Actually, in Bulgarian, to say I want is iskam. But in the past, it was hosit, a bit like the Russian khatit. And then it changed to be šte. It is not conjugated. It is just a particle that we add, and then the conjugated verb. And this has been compared with, again, Persian and Iranian, but then again, it exists in other languages as well, including English. I will. When we think about it, it means exactly I want to. A couple of examples. Говоря, to speak. Ще говоря, ще говориш, ще говори. Then I try to give some examples that show more complicated structures of it. Usually it will be really just adding ще. But let's say we have отивам, which is an imperfective verb. I'm going. It really implies movement. Ще отивам is possible, but it will be a very specific meaning, like I will be moving, I will be in the process of going. Usually what we want to say is ще отида, just I will go. Ще отидеш. Then there is a reflexive, събуждам се, wake up. Ще се събудя. Again, събуждам is actually the imperfective form. So, ще се събуждам, it means I will be in the process of waking up. So, it is not something we would say. Ще се събудя is simply I will wake up. To make the negative, we use the word няма, which means there is not. We have a word for this.
Yeah.
So, няма, да, and the conjugated verb. Ще говоря, I will speak, but няма да говоря, I will not speak. Не отивам, I'm not going, but няма да. Ще отида, I will go, няма да отида, I will not go. And yes, I was thinking, Alex, do you know how to make a question? For example, will I speak?
Ще говори ли? Не.
Ще говоря ли?
Ще говоря ли?
Particle ли. Okay, actually, не ще is something that exists. It was like this in the past. Instead of няма, we would use ще, не ще. But now it sounds very, very archaic, very poetic. Okay, and an important side note is that even in the cases when a feature of Bulgarian has been traced to, let's say, Persian, then it is also the case with Slavic. So the Proto-Slavic language itself can supposedly be traced to Persian. So this kind of complicates things even more. So it might not even be linked to the Bulgar tribe necessarily, if any of these links exist. Then another, just a short mention of a theory linked to Latin. It's linked to the fact that there was an influence of the Latin-speaking population that was based in the area near the Danube. Surely there is a link with Romanian here. And there's some names of places and river. I have put one town and one river that come from Latin.
And Isker from Uiskus. That's
yes.
cool.
The was great, by the way. Great.
Did I say it okay?
The Isker, you made the perfectly.
Oh, yay. Not even trying. I should have tried harder, and then I would have got it wrong. Good. Lucky, just lucky.
Okay, and then a note on Ottoman influence, because Bulgaria was part of the Ottoman Empire during 500 years. So we mentioned the Bulgars being a Turkic tribe and they're being influenced from there. But the more recent influence that can be confused sometimes is literally from Turkish. We have some words from Turkish origins. Some of them we use in standard Bulgarian, like çekmece, drawer, kilim, carpet, patlıcan, eggplant. And then also there's some words coming from Turkish that form a specific register. They're very, very informal, even joking, like yok, which means no, merak, like will, desire. So they sound very funny. It's if we hear it on TV, like in a Turkish TV series, we'll find it very funny because we don't use them in standard Bulgarian. And then there are many words coming from Turkish that have been replaced by Russian counterparts. And specifically, I have noted some that come from French. So from French through Russian into Bulgarian, like bouquet, savon, accessoire, garçonnière, and boutique. Boutique is one of a set of specific words in that they change the meaning a little. Like in French, boutique can be any shop.
Yeah.
You can buy food from a boutique. But in Bulgarian and in Russian, it is really high quality fashion shop. So it does sound strange to me when your mother says, like, I brought a baguette from a boutique, for example.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. And it's also quite funny to see how like the French language was processed like through like Russian and then landing on Bulgarian with the sound like especially the yo sound. Yeah. The yo.
That's something that I'm pleased to say there are a lot of modern Greek people, there's modern Greek speakers and Greeks who like the channel, and they like to come here, which is great. And I'm really glad to all of you who are here today. But sometimes a Greek person will say something a word that's from Greek that I use in English, and will say that, oh, you're pronouncing it wrong. Don't abuse my language or something like that. And then I try to explain that almost when we take new words from ancient Greek into English, like scientific terms, what we do is we follow the pattern that the words came in through a 2 millennium process, which was into Latin first. So we change, like every K usually is a C. There are very few words, like for example, our cardiogram, we spell with a C, not a K. Though there are a few words that sometimes will spell with a K, which is a little bit more unusual, a bit more Greek. But we usually do the Latin spelling convention. We saw the word oiskos before, which actually looked kind of Greek to me. But spelling O-E instead of O-I is more Latin instead of Greek. And then we take it through the process of Latin natural pronunciation change, ultimately into French, Old French, I suppose. And then as it came through Norman French into English, and then English goes through a vowel shift. So the way that we pronounce words, even new words that we bring into modern English from ancient Greek, we put through that process most of the time. So like you said, it is kind of strange to see my native French word handed to Russian and then passed off to Bulgarian. And it's interesting that how that gets passed off. And there's some funny things in Japanese too that from here and there you wouldn't expect.
Yes. Also, you have seen, for example, we also use the word merci. The word for thank you in Bulgarian is благодаря. But we can absolutely say merci. It's a little bit more colloquial.
Chooses merci, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And I think even in Romania. So I find it fascinating the French influence in the Balkan area. I think that's really cool. How unusual.
And sorry. And if I can actually throw my own 2 cents on this, I've noticed as well that you have some German influence with German words as well, just like in French.
Oh yes, of course, and Russian too. There, yes.
So you have Roklia, which would be rocker. If I'm like my German is extremely like is really far behind me, unfortunately. But plenty of so. But I think what was it for suitcase? Koffer, same in German. Lots of little words like this.
It's one of those. Is it kofar? Is it koffer? It got me thinking.
That's great. Keep going, Iglika.
Okay, and now the postfix definite article. Here are examples of all possible articles. For the masculine, it can be ut or yat. And these are the full forms. Like I mentioned before, we also have the partial ones when the word is not the subject, and it will be maj-a con ya. In the case of yat, it's just the t that falls, but when we have ut, it has to be changed to an a. We don't have any words ending in
Right.
then жената for the feminine, and детето for the neuter. Then this appears in other languages too, Romanian, Albanian, and some Russian dialects, which I have found interesting. What is specific about it in Bulgarian maybe is that it becomes part of the word. It is not written separately. And also very often it becomes attached to the adjective that comes before the noun. For example, кучето, the dog, but голямото куче, the big dog. In English also, of course, there will be before big, but then here it's just so obvious that it becomes part of the adjective. And the origin of these articles are reduced demonstrative pronouns. Today we say този човек, тази жена, това дете. To say this.
So it's this, excuse me, it's this.
Yes. Yes, this and that. We have an equivalent of that, onzi, but we don't use it much.
No.
Are you familiar with that? Not really, right?
Well,
Cool.
And the way they were written for a while was човек to say този човек, жената, детето. And eventually it became what today is the postfix definite article. And finally, a little bonus. This is an extract from a book. Ivan Vazov is maybe our most famous author, novelist. This is a novel, maybe like novella called Чичовци of 1885. The language is very, very hard. I think I made you read it at some point.
Yeah.
Basically, it would be difficult even for Bulgarians. And I just underlined some elements that link back to what we have been talking about. So once again, I'm going to make Luke's life harder, like I had done with ancient Greek, which is very, very complicated text.
Sophocles is hard, by the way, and I've not studied him, so.
Yes.
That's Siric?
Siric, yes.
Excuse me, I was using a reduction of the vowel like Russian. Pardon me. And then Prostomu. Okay.
Yes, I'll just explain what they mean. So Siric is a word coming from Russian. Like toest, it means that is to say. And there is also a similar word coming from Turkish, which is demek. We use them interchangeably. So I just wanted to note here the variety of vocabulary. And poprostomu, this is really a case. It means said simply in a simple way. This was kept as a fixed expression and the case was there. We wouldn't say today, but back then it could be used. Then, dragi приятелю is a vocative. My dear friend.
Feminine?
It would be drag приятел.
Feminine vocative?
No, it's masculine.
Oh.
Draga приятелко.
Oh, it's that's I see.
Yes.
And am I reading them? Who's going to read them?
Yes, полза мислен. This is just to show how highly morphological Bulgarian is. So we have the root misля, to think. Замислен is thoughtful, with the prefix za, which means kind of beginning to. And adding po, it's like in Russian, it just means a little bit. So a little bit thoughtful, позамислен. Then we have пази Боже, which is also vocative. It's God forbid, God keep, literally. Again, a fixed expression. Then the stana. Here, normally it would be an infinitive in many languages. The context is the person is saying to become someone's slave. So the verb is stavam, and we say the stana, to become. Then, аз не съм селямсъзът. So don't worry about Selim Sızat. It's someone's name. Actually, it's not even a name. It's a nickname, which means a person who doesn't talk to people when he meets them in the street from Turkish.
Yeah, I'm not.
If I understand correctly.
Yeah, I am not.
Lots of
I can see that part.
Yes. So here I will just point out that we have the full definite article. It is a nickname, yes, so it can be used with an article. Selim Sızat. And it is the full one, because this is what we do in this case when we have the construction I am, then something, then both I and the thing that I am are objects. So we would use the full version of the article. Then another, actually, it is a case, sueta suet. It means vanity of vanities. Regular Bulgarian would be suetano suetite. It's a quote from the Bible, so I'm guessing it's just taken readily, even though cases were not used much by this time. Then щях да кажа. This is future, but future in the past. I was going to say. So ще becomes щях, ще кажа, щях да кажа. And then to show negation. So this means neither a woman nor gold nor silver make a man happy. And we have nito žena, nito zlato, nito srebro, which means neither, 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 and then ne pravят, do not make. Okay, so this is all.
Wonderful.
Some sources.
Wow.
Okay, thanks very much for listening.
That was so comprehensive. Oh, thank you so much. Hey, you can't leave yet though, because we have a lot of comments and questions that we're going to look at here. Anyway, thank you so much.
Did I stop sharing?
You have stopped sharing. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you see me now?
Great. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, we're great. Yeah. So I went way back to make sure, I want to see if I can get as many of your comments and questions that are germane to what we're talking about as possible.
Right.
The Romanian currency also has the leu, so another lion currency. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it was
in Bulgarian, we call them lei when we talk about the Romanian currency. I never thought about the fact that it also comes from lion.
Yeah. Question from Punyo11. Will it be saved as a recording? Yes. This live stream, when it's complete, will be a regular video. And when I get the time, I'm going to put timestamps in the description to help find like the Q&A and so forth. Let us see some more. The sweet ice.
Absolutely. Yes.
Very good.
Sweet ice.
Yeah. And in Russian, apparently that works as a term, as well as morozenaya. And
okay, thanks. I didn't know that.
Yeah, von Peterhoff says that svadba is etymologically svatba, with the T undergoing regressive assimilation. All right. Now there's a question here about Old Church Slavonic. And this is a 4-part question. So this is part 1. Mia asked about the realization of this Old Church, I think it's an Old Church Slavonic letter, right?
Yes.
I don't know it. Do you even know how to pronounce it?
If I'm not mistaken, there are a few of them that look similar. I think this will be similar to the if I'm not wrong. Yes, but then there were a few versions of it because the existed already. And yet there was this vowel and a couple of other vowels. I think maybe there was 9 of them. And in Bulgarian, we have 6 of them today. And yes, so something similar to my guess will be.
Yeah, and me seems to be suggesting it might have been a nasal vowel, like or something. I don't know.
Maybe, yes.
Part 2. But according to some sources, some Bulgarian and Macedonian dialects spoken around Thessaloniki and Kastoria still preserve the nasal pronunciation. So, like, I guess an I don't know. I'm just guessing. If it's and then like would be the nasally version of it. I'm not doing it right, probably. Part 3. An example being, please read this because I can't.
Къде гредеш, мило чедо?
And the phonetic transcription has that's I think that's an unrounded u. So like kude, kude, something like that. I can't do it very well. I haven't heard this before. Kude. And then grandish. Grandish. So there's some kind of and then cendo. So there's a nasal vowel, and there's the realization of the Old Church Slavonic letters. Wow.
Very interesting.
Or old orthography for Bulgarian. And final part. Love to know if Monoglossia knows or has any heard of a native Bulgarian who speaks using the original nasal sounds. Maybe not.
Wow. Yes, so this would be people from the south of Bulgaria, maybe. Not that I can think of. We have been there. We have spent time there.
Yeah, in
yes,
Sandanski,
for example. Yeah. Yes, but no, nothing specific comes to mind about their accent. Maybe it would take going to some small villages in the area to find this.
Like we've been to basically Sandanski is sort of a spa city.
It's a bit of a spa city.
A bit of a spa city, and we've been to a place where they make wine called Melnik. But sadly enough, we didn't really talk to people there. So
yes, but it's also very touristic.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's extremely touristic. So
yes, we have some really strong dialects in Bulgaria, even though it's a small country. Like my grandparents' village, you can confirm that what they speak doesn't sound like Bulgarian.
I do not understand a word.
Yes, so this is the Shopski region. Yes, it's different thing altogether. We don't have the h, they don't have the h sound there, for example, like in French.
For me, it's great because I can't remember a colleague of mine like back in the days was like told me I had a kind of an accent from this area. So I was like, yeah, fair. Yeah.
Well, there was said that was much appreciated, and thank you for being a fan. Appreciate it. Become a fan of Monoglossia. Clearly, they know what they're doing when it comes to Bulgarian and this stuff. Yeah, and Punyo asked the question which you answered. There are, of course, some words that you told us about with that origin.
Yes, I mentioned kuche, for example, dog.
And then I'm so bad at Polish pronunciation. Every time I look at it, I'm like, wait a minute, what? I think it's easier to read Cyrillic because I know what those letters are usually supposed to be. But these are also my letters, so it's like, oh wait, what is this? So shushkente, sorry, I'm trying, is asked, are there other Slavic languages with articles? Does Macedonia have them or no?
I would guess yes.
Oh yes, in fact, James Adams confirms this. He says that a little bit later. Yeah, which that would be an interesting part of the Sprachbund, and Graf backs it up as well. Looking down the list here, let's see, vamping. This is my vamping voice. Proud to be from Thessaloniki.
It's a very beautiful city.
Yes, we've been there.
I've never been to Greece. I want to go. I want to go and study modern Greek. That'd be great. And you've not studied Old Church Slavonic, right?
No, I have read a couple of books about it.
Yeah,
that's it.
And Shishkente mentions that, of course, the languages are similar, and two forms of a plural-centric language. There was some discussion about in the comments about the essentially what defines a language. And I wanted to say I made a video touching on that issue. I think it's a very complicated issue, and I think it's kind of different in every situation. What is a dialect and what's a language? For example, on this live stream today, I emphasized that Scots is a language which is closely related to English rather than a dialect. And the reason is that it's essentially a kind of politics. That is, politics meaning how people interact in a citizenry and how they see themselves and how they see one another. And if and language is closely connected to national identity. And for example, the languages of Italy are called dialects of Italian, but they're not really. They're dialects of just that location of that geography. They're all related, but they're not like descended bad versions of Italian or something. That's sort of the reputation and impression. Of course, there are some, I think, few surviving but very interesting dialects in France, which are just sister languages to standard modern French. They're not like bad versions of it. And so anyway, so I cover that in that video, so you go take a look at it if you want. But so describe, I mean, I would say all the Slavic languages, I mean, my very limited experience with them, just as kind of dabbling with Russian for many years and looking at a little bit of the others, is in comparison to the Romance language group and the Germanic language group, which I'm a little bit more familiar, especially the Romance, is that the Slavic languages, since they seem to begin their branching off much later in the very time period you were talking about, with the Ultra-Slavonic from Bulgaria and all that, gives me the impression that they're just less drift. And there are so many of them as well that the Slavic languages, I don't know, like my little bit of Russian I have, when I see a bit of Polish, a bit of Bulgarian, I'm like, oh, I recognize words, grammar. It just leaps out to me in a way that I didn't ever feel quite as much with the Romance languages. So, you know, so what defines a language or a dialect is very much, I think, a question that's not easily answered. A variety of spoken language is a very careful way to say it, perhaps. But so that would be that part. So, but you, as a native speaker, Iglika, how have you interacted many times with Macedonian speakers? And what was that
yes, like? I would say so. Supposedly, the languages are I think 80% mutually intelligible, so it is completely possible to interact and understand each other.
Really? And you were speaking your own native languages, and it was high.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
that's cool.
Same with Serbian, a little bit less with Serbian, but similarly with Serbian.
Makes sense. That much farther east. Oh, I wanted to get up. So the Balkan Sprachbund. So we get a picture of that. Just a sort of a map, because I like maps. Where'd the picture go? We get this image. This is not the best image, but it may do, because share my screen. These are, sorry, there's several images here, but it gives an idea, perhaps. So these languages are considered to be part of the Sprachbund. Here's something important. So I have a friend who's very much into languages, linguistics in general, and is frequently annoyed. She's Romanian, is frequently annoyed about the confusion of Romani, called colloquially gypsy. As an American, I don't find that term offensive, but we don't have too many Romani people that we interact with, so it's not like something that where I think in Europe it's much more profound. So this is sort of my my public service announcement about the Romani. The Romani is a fascinating culture and language, which is associated, of course, with the Romani people who nomadic, not exclusively, but in part, for a long time, and have settled in many parts of the world, including countries in Europe. And by coincidence, Romania, which is named after Roma, the city in Italy, of course, the Roman Empire, has a very similar spelling. So many people, hopefully not too many, but you see in YouTube videos, you see people say that this is the same thing.
In France a lot, probably more than anywhere else.
Yes, because actually so it's kind of complicated. We have people that will call gitans, which would be basically people travelers, but they consider like a group of travelers, but coming from Spain. So and the like Romani people and the gitans are actually different. They're not so well, the culture do meet in some. The culture does meet in some area. Actually, the yet again they're very different group of people. So we would say a Roma for like
Romani?
Romani people coming from the southeast of Europe, and like gitan, well, it's still deemed slightly colloquial and can even be used as an insult. You would say it.
But many people would say Roma, referring to the Romani.
Yes.
Roma is a Romanian, Roma. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a point of contention, and I think both groups of people probably just don't want to be confused for no other reason that it's simply a misidentification, which it can be. I'd be irritated. So I can understand. So I just mentioning that. Of course, Bulgarian here. So here's about the Danube River and the Eastern Roman, or not, well, yeah, the Eastern Roman Empire, but especially the Roman Empire. The height had part of Dacia or Dacia, which was here for a while, for about a century and a half. And Serbo-Croatian, Albanian, fascinating language, which is not related. It's an Indo-European language, of course. I'm just telling you. I know you know this. I'm telling it to the people listening. Albanian is really interesting because it's essentially the only language of its branch of Indo-European, not closely or certainly not directly related to the next door Slavic, Greek, or Italic. Macedonian, and I hope our Greek and North Macedonian viewers we'll get along as we continue to talk about. I know it's a point of contention there about the names and so forth. So, but hopefully nobody minds today if we use these terms as we see them. And Greeks, and these are all Indo-European languages, but they all are really from rather different groups: Romance, Slavic, Albanian, and Greek. So it's interesting. Anyway, just want to put that up for people so they could see the Sprach.
Isn't it great to travel so little and be able to see such different languages, cultures too? But to me, really, the languages.
You're in the middle of this country. You go from Ohio to Oklahoma, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's certainly much more similar. Okay, let's see. Bulgarian, very similar. 3 definite articles. That's cool. And moving on here, lots of great discussion, everyone, about the different types of Greek. So actually, I don't. But L.E. Pex. George. Actually, I don't know how I ought to say your name. So hopefully, LG. I see the 2 letters there. So LG, a native speaker of Pontic Greek. That's really cool. The infinitive is completely lost in common usage, only remains in stale expressions. Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. I think that even might be true in a few, because modern Greek has taken directly from ancient Greek quite a few idioms and expressions. So for all I know, there's an idiom in there which has an infinitive. Okay, so Svetlin, excuse me, Dimitrov asks you to pronounce the longest word. Do you know it?
Okay, there you go. Yes, of course, we all know it.
Oh, good.
Neprotivo constitucionstvovatovejte.
That's great. That's great. That's so good.
Thank you, Svetlin.
Yeah. And let's see. Oh, regarding solecisms. That's, I think, the technical term for a mistake that a native speaker makes. A barbarism is a mistake that a foreigner would make, whereas a solecism is a native speaker one. In English, of course, just like every language, we have lots of solecisms. And one of them is say irregardless, the ir being the in, a negation, and the less also being negation. So it's just like the vipre, what word was that? Vipre?
Predvit.
Yeah, that one. Where it was the 2 prefixes. One of them is enough. Essentially, it's redundant. So yeah, kind of solecism, and really cool stuff you're all talking about. And this, of course, the chat here will remain for people to look at too. So if all of you want to check out the interesting things that people said, you viewing in the future from now will be able to do that. And let's see. Moving on. I lost where I was. Oh gosh. Let's scroll. If I can find it.
Weird.
Let's see. Oh, and me was happy to receive the answer to.
Thank you, me.
Oh, I got a new member. Thank you, Christopher Larson, for becoming a new member of the channel. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's really nice and generous of you. I appreciate that. Okay, well, I think I might have lost some of the ones in the middle. So if you have more questions and you're still here, write them up quick as I look through. And let's see. Okay, so Tocharian has no living descendants, and Uyghur is Turkic. Okay, right, fair enough.
I see. Okay, thank you for the correction.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh, I'm so I just feel more and more out of my element the farther I go, figuratively east with languages. I know so little. I feel like just out of my element, I guess. But they're so interesting. Pursa, thank you very much for the kind words. Yeah, I mean, gosh, what I didn't do anything. This is all Iglika and Alexandre today. They were telling us all about Bulgaria, and so yeah. Subscribe to their channel. And and Christopher Larson said thanks. Let me be member. Thank you so much. I'm language Greek and find your YouTube videos interesting since I'm learning Greek. Great, yeah. Also fascinated with South Slavic languages like Bulgarian, as am I. Love the similarities. Yeah, in languages. Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for being a member, Christopher, and thank you for your comment. I agree. Okay, looking through here, and like I said, anyone, if there's something I don't get to today, please write it in the comments, and I'll get to it, especially if it's Bulgarian directly related or French. We have about French today, especially since Iglika, you're living in France now too, so you've been doing this mutual experience of learning each other's languages in your countries, that's so cool. That's yeah. Well, we'll have to do this again. We'll do something. Maybe perhaps on French, and Polish has kept some nasal vowels, which is absolutely true. And we saw this before. I think me said how much the answer was appreciated. Andras, let's see. Andreas is asking, how do they pronounce?
They just
in that accent.
Well, it's difficult to say, because I would say they wouldn't write it. If they are writing, then it will be something formal and they would pronounce it. I don't think they have any problem pronouncing it. It's just that words wouldn't tend to have it. It would just not be there. For example, let me think. Chodia, to go, would be odia. It's just not there. But if they write it, they would write chodia, and if they're in a formal situation, they would say chodia.
That's amazing. Huh. Here's some Romanian Cyrillic. I've seen a little bit of this. This Romanian now uses, of course, the Roman alphabet, but Cyrillic is really cool, especially those old forms that look really neat. Question from von Peterhoff. Wonder if liturgical language used in liturgy is in the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, modern Bulgarian, something closer to Old Church Slavonic, or a more Russified Church Slavonic, like in Serbia or something else?
Well, basically, starting from the 12th century, there is no longer references to Old Church Slavonic. It would now be Church Bulgarian, Church Serbian, Church Russian. So it will be a language that sounds close, I'm sure, to, although we don't know what exactly it sounded like, to Old Church Slavonic, and not very much like modern Bulgarian. More like Russian, if I can put it in this way. There are cases. So yes, I would say it sounds more like Russian than like Bulgarian. And I would say it's strongly based on Old Church Slavonic, but it wouldn't be called Old Church Slavonic. It would be just Church Bulgarian.
Cool. And Jacob asked a question that I think we might have gotten to a little bit earlier, like as far as an interesting accent when speaking to with words that are the same between the two languages. But I think you maybe did answer that.
Well, I know that personally I've only met
one person from Macedonia, so I'm not equipped to answer.
I don't have much experience writing to people from Macedonia. They would use the Latin alphabet, so that automatically just makes a bit of a barrier. So written the same, it's hard to say since it's not the same alphabet. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I suppose Cyrillic is used too, but I have never seen it being used.
Although I think there's an aspect that you can mention that would probably be interesting is that you're actually using the Latin alphabet when you have to, when you're in a position when you absolutely cannot use the...
Yes, we have we have a term for Bulgarian written in Latin. We say it's very colloquial, it's a bit derogatory, like Maimunica, like monkey language. Shljokovica, again, it's really something that's considered impolite. Here there is really no similarity with Macedonian or Serbian, where it is standard to write in Latin.
But to the point that you're actually using numbers, and that's what I find quite fascinating. Like, for example, our son Stefan will say Stefcho, and we'll write like Steph 40 because it's
to do the ch, we would put a 4 because it looks like ch. It looks like the Bulgarian ch. For sh, we would put a 6. I don't know why. It doesn't look similar.
I don't know why I find it absolutely fascinating.
Yes, it's just really improvised. We don't know where these come from. To write ya, we would not use something like YA. We would use Q for whatever reason.
Convention. It's all convention. Well, Alex and Iglika, thank you so much. This has been really fun. Maybe we can do this again in the future. Everybody out there, please subscribe to Monoglossia. How do you say it? I'm just saying it like the modern Greek way. How do you say Monoglossia?
Don't even think about it. Well, we just say Monoglossia, like polyglossia, just regular kind of Englishy.
Which is also a great point. When utilizing a Greek word in the Western languages like English, the stress follows the pattern that Latin would do, which is glossia, so monoglossia, which makes sense. Instead of monoglossia, which is the modern and to a degree ancient Greek way of saying it. Latin had well, I won't talk about that now. I actually have the whole video series in Latin pronunciation you guys can watch. So, thank you so much all out there for watching. Your comments and questions, anything we didn't cover or questions you have or comments later, please post them after this video goes live, which will be in a few minutes, I think. It is live. It goes into a preserved permanent thing, and we'll be delighted to investigate your questions.
Absolutely.
So merci and merci.
Perfect.
Hey, out a useful word. That's great. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.